Hello and welcome back to Creative CEO. This is the podcast for creative business owners juggling running their business alongside parenthood. My name is Georgie Turner. I'm an artist and I'm here to help you navigate the ups and downs of business life alongside your children, your animals, your household, all those things that you have to juggle in day-to-day life, as well as running your creative business. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about money and finances because somebody asked me a question recently and said to me, were you making a healthy profit from your art business before you quit your job? And the answer is no, I didn't actually know. I wasn't making a profit I was making okay money, but most of the money that I was making was being put back into the business, and my part-time job was covering all of my bills. So I was turning a small profit over, but not enough money to cover my bills. So when I decided to hand my notice in, you might be thinking, well, why did you even do it if you didn't have that security? But I had some commissions coming in, and it was also just a little bit of self-belief and knowing that I could fall back on teaching and go into supply teaching if I really needed to. So I handed my notice in the May, and then I had the game fair booked in July. So it was when I handed my notice in, I wasn't making enough money to cover all my bills, but I kept thinking, I know that I'm going to get some commissions off the back of the game fair, even though I didn't actually know that. I just had the self-belief that I would. And I knew that I had a backup option, which I think is really, really important. Like, I know that there is some kind of it makes you feel like liberated if you feel like you could just, say, sod this, I'm going to hand my notice in and just go at it. There is like a liberating feeling in that. But at the end of the day, you've got to pay your bills, and you've got to, keep your life going without your business, which is probably your absolute passion, becoming, the daily grind. You want it to remain your passion. And if you're constantly chasing money, working, month to month where you are really struggling to make ends meet, it's no longer going to be fun. So when I handed my notice in, I just had the absolute positive self-belief that it was going to happen. And things really did change after I handed my notice in, especially after the game fair. I touched on this in my very first episode about how my mindset shifted completely in terms of money, because I knew that I needed to make money, and I also needed to stay positive and know that money is in abundance. And because you're running a business, you're not just in like an employed job. There is no limit to what you can earn in your business. So it's very, very strange. I've learned recently about the art of manifestation and really believing in what you want. And when you are positive and when you put positive things out into the world, it really does come to you. You still have to put the work in, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the minute I handed my notice in, I suddenly started getting commission inquiries, and I was selling prints and I was selling homewares. And then, I'm now in November and I am good. Like, I don't have to go back to work, which is such a fantastic position to be in. But I still know that I can go back and be a supply teacher somewhere, even if it wasn't at my old school. Like, I know I've got that as a backup. I feel very safe knowing that I have a backup, but I also don't want to fall back on it unless I'm absolutely desperate, because I know that I don't want to go back into that environment. But it's really good to have a form of backup. I also do some cleaning for an Airbnb, which is another brilliant little money earner, and it helps me to just stay a little bit more afloat. But I don't need it, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that if you just stay on top of your finances and you stay positive and you continue to manifest good things, then it will happen for you. You do have to obviously put in the work, but it will happen for you. So I wanted to talk firstly about my cash flow forecast. So as soon as I handed my notice in, I got my husband, who is an accountant, to create a cash flow forecast for me. And it is so important to keep on top of your cash flow forecast, because You need to predict what's coming in. You need to look at what you've definitely got coming in. And then also it gives you a chance to set targets for what you need to make, through website sales or, in-person sales, to make sure that you've got enough to cover all of your monthly outgoings. So your cash flow forecast should have the money that you have at the start of the month, all of your money that comes in and all of your money that goes out. And then you should have like an end of the month amount which feeds into the next month. It's important to document absolutely everything that goes in and out of your business bank account, including when you take money for yourself. Setting aside time every single week to go through your bank account and input it into a cash flow forecast. Though you can get companies that do this for you. There's like a company called Xero, and I think they do your accounts, but I'm a little bit of a control freak, and I like just having my own spreadsheet set up. And because my husband's an accountant, he's done all these like fancy formulas on Excel. I've got a very, very sexy cash flow forecast. But it's been one of the biggest shifts for me, has been keeping really a close eye on top of my finances. It's really important to put in not just your direct debits for your business that are coming out, such as, I've got like my Shopify is a monthly subscription, my ManyChat is a monthly subscription, Klaviyo, all my email stuff, that's all monthly subscriptions. But then it's also important to budget for materials, and you might not necessarily be buying materials every single month, but you could divide sort of your general annual amount that you spend on materials and divide that by 12 and give yourself a monthly budget towards materials. So it's really important to do stuff like that, just to make sure that you're not, underestimating how much you're spending for your business, and then you are ensuring that you've got the money coming in for those bills. So my cash flow forecast document is really relevant to doing my tax return. The date that you've got to submit it is on the 31st of January. And what I've done this year to make my life a lot easier, I have categorized every single thing that comes out of my account. So all of my business expenses, I've categorized them so that when I go to do my tax return, I've already done all of the sums. I'm just going to remind you that I am not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. So I'm not giving out advice to do with tax in terms of, how you can save yourself money or whatever. What I want to do is help you feel a bit more empowered as to what you can actually claim for and how you can organize it so that you don't have the same sort of stresses that I have done in the past when you are having to do your tax return. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk through all of the sort of the different categories that come up on the self-assessment tax return and just talk about what I include in those as business expenses. So apologies if this is not in order, but I think it might be in order. So the first category that you have to input into your self-assessment tax return is the cost of goods bought for resale. So this can be divided into goods for resale, which is like your stock, raw materials, and direct cost of producing goods sold. So goods for resale or stock, that's pretty easy because that's anything that you buy in that you're going to directly resell back to the public. So for me, that's like homewares. When I buy in, mugs and stuff from the company that I use, I then will sell them back. Prints are also under that category. Raw materials, so obviously that is absolutely anything that you buy that is a raw material for your creative work. So colour pencils for me, paper, paints, anything that is a material to create the work that you then sell. The next one is car, van and travel expenses. So under that you've got fuel and you've got parking. So I don't use a huge amount of fuel for my business. So if you've got a car and you use it mainly for private use, but you might do a little bit of business use in it, then you can only claim for the business side of the car. So if you put, £100 of fuel in your car every week, but you are doing 90% private travel with that £100, and you're doing 10% business travel, you can only claim for £10 a week. I would say that's quite a lot. If you're putting £100 of fuel in your car, you're obviously traveling a long, long way. But I just like to use a nice round number for my examples. So I work from home. Most people do. Most artists probably do, like not everyone, but lots of people do have studios at home. So I don't use a huge amount of fuel for my travel, but I do include in that whenever I've travelled solely to the post office just for my business use, whenever I've travelled to the gallery for meetings, because that's business use, when I've travelled to exhibits and shows, because again, that's just business use. So I think I'm only claiming, in the last tax year, I'm only claiming for £100 for the whole year. Parking as well, it's good to keep hold of your parking receipts, and if you go to town and you're buying stuff purely for business use, you can then pay. I don't really claim much for parking. I think I'm claiming like £6, which doesn't even seem worth putting it in. But I always just like to tot up everything that I've done for business use. Off the back of working from home, if you work from home, you can claim for the percentage of business use for your rent, your rates, your power, your insurance, that you use solely for your business. So I think I've worked out that my studio, so the room that I use for all of my artwork, is 1/6 of the house. So I don't think you include bathrooms in that. So I've got, say, 6 rooms in my house, including upstairs, downstairs. So I've divided all of my water, my insurance, my internet, my heating, my electric, all of my annual costs that come out of my joint account for my house. I have divided that by 6, and that's what I'm going to claim for, because I use 1/6 of my house for business use. So that's something to consider, because I'm sure people forget that you can claim for these things, and it's really important to check on the government website first before you go ahead and do this, just to see what else you can claim for. There's things that are on the government list that I don't even need to look at, such as vans, others, or other car and van expenses. You can claim for legal and financial costs. So I've just put in, insurance. So you can claim for having insurance. So you should have insurance if you go to shows. You should have public liability insurance. So you can claim for that, and you can claim for any bank charges. Office, property and equipment. So this is pretty much anything that's kind of, let's say, paper and phone based. So under that, I've got postage and packaging. God, I spend so much money on posting, and I try and limit my packaging because I actually reuse a lot of cardboard. But actual postage, you can't, you just have to pay, and you have to pay it. And I like to try and offer free shipping on my website, but I offer it over a certain amount so that it kind of offsets the cost of the postage. But God, yeah, you can claim for that, which is brilliant. But because otherwise you're spending a lot on postage. I'm sure every other creative business out there fully understands what I'm talking about. Stationery, your telephone, printing and small office costs. So my print that could be quite confusing if you're an artist. I don't include, obviously, prints under printing. My printing and small office costs are my running of my printer at home. So ink, that's it, really, ink and paper, really. And then your phone contract. So you can work out how much of your phone you use for business. I've worked out that I use my phone for business probably about 70% of the time, and I'm not even exaggerating. I only ever go on my phone really to go and do social media marketing or speak to clients. So you can claim for a percentage of your phone contract that you use for business use. And then you've got other allowable expenses. So under this category, I've got advertising, website costs, subscriptions, sundries, which I think is a fancy word for things that don't fit into another category, training courses and equipment. So I've got quite a lot in this one, because advertising can include going to shows, because you're exhibiting, you're advertising your business in a physical form. Obviously website costs. So when you've got subscriptions for Shopify, or you have to pay for particular things on your website, training courses, quite self-explanatory. And then equipment, for me, that's pretty much anything that's in my studio. So this microphone that I'm speaking into now, my phone stand, I think I bought that last year. So all these kind of little bits and pieces that fall into you running a business. I also, on my cash flow forecast, have a non-deductible category, just that I keep it all nice and neat. So things like when I take money out for myself, for my salary, or like when I pay my tax, obviously you can't deduct that. Any sort of parking that's not related to my business, I all do non-deductible stuff. So there are things that you can't claim for. If you buy yourself a pair of dungarees so that you don't get paint on your clothes, you can't deduct for that. You can't like claim for clothes that you wear every single day for your work. Unless you have like a uniform for staff, but you can't claim for clothes that you just wear for work. So that was just a run through of the self-assessment tax return. I hope that was useful. It's really hard when you're kind of doing it just through talking, because I understand that it's hard to kind of put it into context. But if you maybe listen back to this when you go through your self-assessment tax return and just think about what have you not claimed for. Oh, so after your allowable expenses, there is a box for you to include any business income that was not trading income. So if you got money because you won a prize from an art competition, you don't put that into your turnover, you put it into like a separate box. If you are genuinely, really, really stuck, I would definitely seek advice from somebody that's qualified, and HMRC have got some really good advice on your tax. So it's taken me a couple of years, and I've used my mother-in-law to help me with getting my head around it, but I really want to be independent. I want to feel like I can do it all myself, and I can just, I know what I'm doing. And by creating a accountancy spreadsheet where I've already categorized my expenditure into the categories that correlate to the tax return, it's just made my life so much easier. And, when you've got a family, you don't want to be spending hours and hours trawling through your bank statements at the end of the year to get yourself your tax return in. I think it's just really important to set yourself up for success and set yourself up for not feeling overwhelmed with the money side of your business by keeping on top of your accounts every single week. Just writing down from your business account to your accountancy spreadsheet everything that you've earned and everything that you've spent on a week-on-week basis it's just one of those tiny little tasks. Well, it's not a tiny task, it's a big task if you don't do it, but if you break it down week by week, then it can become a lot more manageable and a lot less stressful when you come up to doing your tax return or that sort of thing. So I hope that was useful. If you've got any questions, please drop them to my inbox, either on social media or my email, which is georgie@georgieturnerartist.co.uk. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.